Our most popular episode to date is our Business Model Canvas podcast. We briefly covered each of the 9 building blocks of the Business Model Canvas in that podcast. In response to many requests from our audience, we are providing 9 podcast episodes addressing each building block separately in greater depth. The Business Model Canvas, developed by Alexander Osterwalder, is a template often used to develop ideas and a monetization strategy for a startup venture. This episode is the 5th of 9 and will cover customer relationships.
Our Favorite Tools for Entrepreneurs podcast addresses tools and concepts that are useful for the launch and growth of entrepreneurial ventures. Your 2 hosts will be Professor Gary Palin and serial entrepreneur Ryan Button.
Hello, Ryan. How are you doing today?
Brilliantly. What about you?
Oh, brilliant. I like that word. We've got some radiance coming off your aura.
There we go. It's the beard. I've been really living into the beard growth. I've only got 2 weeks with it before I've been forced to shave it. Every day I've been looking at it, admiring it. I think it's my true self.
That'd be the analogy to Samson's story, but your intellect will be in the beard when it gets cut.
Oh, no. Don't say that too loud. It might be true.
Right. Today, I'd like to continue our discussion on the Business Model Canvas. We're going to be speaking about the building block customer relationships. That's basically is the way in which a business interacts and manages its customers. It includes the strategies and tactics that a business uses to build and maintain relationships with the customers. And in essence, they want to create long-term value for both the business and the customers.
Absolutely. This is one of the more fun rectangles on the Business Model Canvas. It's exciting to actually think how you're going to communicate with customers and where they live and what that relationship is going to be like. It really gets you to the point of, at least in your head, experiencing what it's going to be like to get sales and have customers.
Yeah, and if you do this properly, then you get positive feedback from the customers. And there's nothing better than that when you're starting a business and you get those first initial positive comments from customers.
Yeah, hopefully they're positive.
Well, if not, then you go back to the drawing board.
Exactly. But no, you're exactly right. That feedback loop is super important, especially in the beginning of businesses. And these customer relationships and the channels that we're going to talk about how you're establishing and what they are throughout this podcast are how you're going to have that feedback loop.
And also with customer relationships, you have to balance the reality of the cost of managing the customers versus the value that it can create for the customers.
Yeah, both in time and financial.
Yeah, especially as a startup, because you're still typically operating lean. So you want to be able to communicate, develop those relationships while very often doing it on a shoestring.
That's exactly right. Let's get into the meat of it. What are these relationships? What are we putting here? What should this look like when someone is filling it out?
Personal assistance can be an example of a development of a customer relationship. So are you offering personalized support versus just a FAQ section?
Sure. I like to frame this whole section in channels. So if you imagine a straw that's connecting one customer to the business, what is that straw? Is it Instagram? Is it Facebook? Is it a personal assistant with an email, with access to an email that they're responding to? A phone line? A website where people can chat with you? What are those straws of communication?
And you balance that to how much self-service should you provide. Each business will have different answers.
Absolutely. And depending on what industry they're in, there are industry standards, and it is a point that they can distinguish themselves in or just make sure they're maintaining an expected level of communication.
For example, it's not a startup, but a large company that, as you know, I fly quite a bit. And I fly on American Airlines, and they will offer personalized customer support for their frequent flyers. And it depends on what level of status that you have. And there's a level in American Airlines, I don't know if you've heard, it's called concierge. It's an invited service. And it's to the level of if you are on a plane with a tight connection and you can't get through the terminal, someone will greet you. They'll bring you down to a limo that will drive you from one airplane to another.
Are you in the concierge level?
Not even on the top tier, let alone the concierge level. But it can show you the absurdities of personalized service if you're spending a lot of money with a company.
Yep.
As a startup, you obviously can't pair it to that level, but you can be thinking of your premier customers. You want to make sure they're special, and you're developing a long-term relationship. It goes back to the Pareto principle that we had spoken about, the 80-20.
Yep.
So who is driving those ventures? You want to make sure you develop very deeply those customer relationships with your top customers that are driving most of your income.
And to the people listening that haven't listened to that podcast, in this example, the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle would be 20% of your customers are driving 80% of your revenue. So identifying those 20% to protect 80% of your revenue is going to be very important.
And you see also other techniques of developing customer relationship, depending on the type of business. Building communities around your topic and your expertise is another way to develop customer relationships.
You've just hit on the one word that I harp on constantly, and that is community. If you are doing customer relationships correctly, you are building a community around your business or brand. You're having people identify with more than just the individual product, but the messaging you're putting out, the environment you're creating, what you stand for, and that's all done through these customer relationship channels.
And that could be a component of a previous discussion we've had about value propositions. The community can be a value proposition also.
Absolutely. Think about Cotopaxi or Subaru or Jeep even has a really good community built around it. All three of them create this feeling that you're part of a group by owning the product.
Sure. Look at Harley Davidson.
Yeah, Harley Davidson, another really, really good example.
Also, you can utilize technology for customer relationships. For example, automated services, and you can use technology like AI that can seamlessly provide the interaction with your venture and your customers with a technology utilization.
AI chat systems, if anyone's listening and wants to explore it, are getting scarily good. They're pretty unbelievable. In fact, they're better than most humans creating the input at getting the concise answers that people are looking for.
Yeah, when I use it, it depresses me because AI is a better writer than I am.
You and me both. And it's certainly better at copyright, finding mistakes.
The grammar is a little bit better than both you and I. Those are the overarching issues with customer relationships that I envision. Are there anything else that you'd like to touch on before we close out, Ryan?
Yeah, just a couple big pitfalls that people don't often think about. When we get into this, oftentimes I see social media being a huge customer relationship channel, and they will list every social media platform, not understanding that the second you engage with a customer on a specific channel, you now have an obligation, both from a financial and a time perspective, to upkeep that channel. Being present on every social media platform is not realistic even for very, very large companies, let alone for startups. So identifying where customers are and building out specific channels, not trying to maintain everyone, is going to be a big key to success.
Social media can be a black hole.
It certainly can. We've talked a lot about the black hole of social media, especially for startups, because of the world we live in.
I would recommend anyone that's just started to follow our podcast to go back and listen to the podcast that we did with Elizabeth Greenberg. She's an expert in that field, and she has some very interesting advice that I found very useful, and I created knowledge that I wasn't aware of.
Yep. The last note that I'll leave people on is the voice that you're using to communicate through these channels. So the tone of your speech, the words that you're using, the more uniform you can create that, the better the community aspect is going to feel for the end customer. They want to feel like no matter how they're reaching out to you, they're talking to the same entity.
Yeah, I would agree 100% on that. I appreciate all of your thoughts and your feedback.
Fantastic.
And if you have a shorter beard next time and you're not as concise and articulate, I know you have the Samson effect coming through.
Yeah, my ego might be a little bruised. You got to give me some time to heal after it.
That's good. Thanks, Ryan.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to our Favorite Tools for Entrepreneurs podcast. As always, you can head over to ProfSpirit.com to check out more resources and courses designed for you, the entrepreneur. Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and others to get the most up-to-date information as it is released.